Hey there, folks, and welcome to episode number 37 of the Minor League Geeks podcast. I am your host, Brent Ramlin with Range, and with me this week is Mr. Brent C. Turner.
Hey, hey.
We're the Monkeys. It's another
Yeah,
mono
I'll
a
go
mono
for it.
show. It's two
I was going
folks.
for a Krusty the Clown kind of thing, but let's do that.
Take what you
Remember
can
The
get,
Simpsons
Brent.
when they were good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. So it's going to be another one of those kind of fireside chat episodes. So is next week's. It's thin right now because everybody's kind of figuring out exactly what they're doing. Some of us are becoming nurses, and some of us have 3 jobs, and some of us are managing property of Zach or doing other things. But we promised.
The answers might surprise you.
Yeah, the answers might surprise you, but we'll get back on a
Who is training to be a
regular.
nurse?
We'll figure it out.
Tell us.
Yes.
We'll figure it out.
So it's just Brent and I today, and we're going to do the fireside chat thing, which is a singular topic. Usually everybody brings a topic to the table. We all talk it out when there are 3 or 4 people. But with 2, we just have one topic. And this week's topic is going to be geeky packing. Now, it's going to be a shorter episode. It's just going to be Brent and I running down the things that we pack with us when we're going on a long voyage. I'm going to be flying to New York, like 12 hours, which is just something that I do now. It's part of my life. And Brent has flown from Australia all the way to San Francisco, which is a harrowing voyage. So anytime that you're in an airplane for that long, you kind of the modern conveniences of geekdom allow you to take a whole bunch of things. Brent, when you came to San Francisco last year, what did you bring? What did you pack in terms of like geeky entertainment or of stuff of that ilk?
What did I bring? Of course, I brought my Vita because right then, just before I left, I think the Jack bundle or something, the trilogy had come out. Which, by the way, if you want to play it, don't play it on Vita because the first one goes fine, but the second one the frame rate just dips into shit. But I platinumed the first one, so that was fun. Or maybe that was just right when I was in San Francisco. I brought a bunch of books because, as much as it makes sense for me, who I read a lot, it makes a lot more sense for me to have like a Kindle or an e-reader or something. I just don't like it. So I have like 5. So on my travel pack that I brought onto the plane, along with my laptop, I brought like 5 books. I read 3 of them, and the other one, and the problem I didn't read the other ones because I bought the Star Wars Shakespeare book when I was in Calgary in Canada, and that was fucking hilarious. Have you heard of these?
No, I haven't. Lay it on me.
So somebody has taken upon them to rewrite the original trilogy movies in, I don't know what the exact word's called, iambic pentameter.
Oh, really?
The way that Shakespeare writes.
Yeah, it's
wrote.
iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter, yes.
And it's really funny because so the second one's just come out, and they've got these really neat photos. So the first one is like photos. There are these really cool drawings on the front, and there's this one on the back of this Death Star, but it's like it's like as if it was some sort of exhibit in a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about maybe 1.5 to 2 feet wide around,
Right.
and it's on fire. And Darth Vader, who you can tell is Darth Vader because of his helmet. Everything else is like just a regular, like a black cloak and a nice black shirt and suit, and he's just got his hand on his mask. Like, fuck. That's really nice, and it's just really funny. Like in the second book, it'll, when Luke gets captured by the Wampa, it'll cut away to the Wampa, and the Wampa it has an aside about how he's just trying to provide for his Wampa family. So he has to hunt this human, and then he gets his hand fucking cut off, which I think gives the character a bit more depth.
What's the name of this thing called? The what? The Star Wars inside the what?
If you just go onto Google and search Star Wars Shakespeare, it'll come up. The first one was it still a New Hope, and the second one was the Empire Striketh Back.
Very cool. You're a book guy. What about the music or the podcasts or any sort of video? You said you brought your laptop, so let's kind of dive in. What kind of stuff did you have on there?
Well, I play a bunch of games on Steam, and I had that. So I played probably like Mark of the I don't know what did I even have back then. I think I played like Mark of the Ninja and Super Meat Boy, Faster Than Light. Most of the games that I have on Steam now are because of um I've bought most recently, which are really cool. No, I didn't have Faster Than Light back then, which I should have, because it's a pretty fun game. Yeah, like I watched some videos on it. I think I had all of the Game of Thrones up to that point on iTunes. The first two seasons of Breaking Bad, and I didn't touch any of that on the flight because I was just watching movies, and I was very conscious about watching the movies because they have when I say from here to Sydney, I was watching the movie because I live in the Western Australia. To get to America, you have to transfer over in Sydney because our airport doesn't have the planes to reach, or just because they don't. None of the planes in Western Australia go that way, so it's easier just to go across our country and then go from Sydney or Melbourne to America. And I've got to say, the plane from here to Sydney was much better than the plane from Sydney to America.
Which is unfortunate given the duration differences.
Yeah. Because in this one, it had the screen in the back of the TV, and it was the same when I went to Europe a couple of years ago. It had the screen in the back of the chair and the little controller, and it was great. And I could, watch a bunch of different movies and a bunch of TV shows. And it was fine. And I felt kind of not nervous, but I felt really self-conscious about what I was watching because the guy sitting next to me was this like bricky. I know he was like a mine site worker, so it was a much bigger guy. Like obviously, and it was really nice. I talked to him for a while, but I really wanted to watch. Shit, what was it? Jesus. I'm sure it was something slightly not manly. Like I can't remember if it was a good show or a TV or a movie or not. But I was really nervous about watching whatever I was trying to watch, and I look over at this guy after we've had our dinner, breakfast, whatever the fuck time it was, and he's watching like one of the Twilight movies on the thing because it was like the second one.
So you had nothing to worry about.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, well, he's not gonna fucking say anything now.
Well, first of all, Brent, you shouldn't just stereotype people like that. I mean, this big burly dude could like Twilight, and then a much smaller person might like whatever crazy masculine or feminine movies exist.
It's like the Green Mile. You never think that giant dude is going to be really affectionate towards the mouse, and turns out to be magic. But that's what happens. Is that the Green Mile? I almost said the whole 9 yards, but that's a Matthew Perry thing. That was a great movie.
You're a ridiculous man. So did the flight from Sydney to America, did it not have the seat back entertainment unit?
No, it was the ones where it's like every 5 seats or every 5 rows. Sorry, there was one in like the roof, and it folded down or slid out. I can't remember. Which is fine because as much as I don't usually sleep on the plane, I really, really needed to sleep. But like I don't usually sleep that well when I'm traveling, but I've really made myself sleep because I was like, oh well, there's not much else to do. I'm that little bit too tired that reading a book I would like you'd read like 3 pages and then you'd like kind of lean it down to think about something and you wouldn't have picked it up again for another 40 minutes. And you're like, oh shit, time has passed.
Time keeps on slipping into the future. I've flown to Europe a bunch, and I have not had a situation where there weren't televisions for, I want to say, like 8 years. Yeah. So I was trying to think, around 05, 06, there was like a massive sea change. What are you doing, Brent?
You said it was the fireside chat, so I've been looking for a fire thing on YouTube.
You've got to stop that. That is the most annoying sound in the world.
I know, because it's so consistent. It doesn't change.
It's not like a crackle or anything. That really sounded like you had put a pencil into a pencil sharpener.
Really? I thought it sounded like shitty water. Oh, here we go. I just love how there's these things. So people have done these on YouTube that are like, to help people study or whatever because they just need a consistent sound in the background. and which I did. There was like a 10-hour forest sound thing that I had on when I was studying once, which it really actually did help. But there are some where they're clearly competing to just have the longest version of this, because there's one that's like 50 hours of crackling fire. I'm like, nobody needs that. Oh, here we go.
No, now that just sounds like somebody walking in a forest, which altogether is also nice. But let's get back on track. So you bring a lot of
let's go back
books.
to traveling.
You bring do you load your phone or MP3 device up with the podcast? That was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I definitely did that because I was going for the whole the nucleus around which this particular trip when I went to America was centered around was Beyond 300. So I had my iPod, and I don't listen to music as like I'm not as much of a music guy as like you or Connor or most people. It turns out I like when I discovered podcasts, which is thanks to like Game Scoop and Beyond. I just fell right into that hole.
Yep.
Like I loaded a whole bunch of shit from like how stuff works, and obviously I reloaded a whole bunch of the old Beyonds just because I really wanted to listen to it. I think I was still working through Tech Fetish because I had just gotten into Tech Fetish, which is actually pretty good. And it was really funny because that was the point where I had discovered, because I didn't know at that point that Scott Lowe had left. And I was like, oh shit, Scott left? I didn't even realize, because he'd been on Beyond a couple of times. And then 5-10 episodes later, or I don't know, I was a lot longer than that, he came back.
Yeah, it was like 9 months, I think, that he was gone.
Yeah, I like Scott. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, wish him all the best at his in his new role.
Yeah, so I usually would listen to a couple of podcasts or a podcast, and then interlude that with some music. It was really relaxing. But I'd listen to a podcast, read a book. I would like not spend longer than 40 minutes on anything, and then just continue on being bored on a fucking 12-hour flight. Was it 17 hours? I don't know. It was a long flight. There's a lot of ocean. I did get to see the sun rise over the ocean, which was fucking beautiful.
Yeah, I love a good sunrise. So that's your traveling thing. I mean, there was an evolution. I started traveling back before like the Game Boy Pocket, so I used to always bring a Game Boy, like the giant brick one, overseas with a couple of games. And I got into podcasts about 2006, and that changed my world because I had just gotten an iPod. My birthday before I started listening to them, and then there was this whole new world that opened up to me, and every Friday I would have a Game Scoop, and that was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And then on my flights I wouldn't have any. So when I traveled to Croatia for the longest time until very, very recently, I did not have access to the internet for whatever, a month plus. And the only time I have it is on the way back. I would stay at a hotel for a night before I went back to America. And so at some point I had a laptop, or I'd grab somebody else's laptop, and I would sync like 4 weeks worth of podcasts, 4 Scoops, 4 Beyonds, 3 Red Lights, onto my iPod, and that basically was like my trip back. I was like, oh, whatever. I remember the funniest one was, did you ever go back and listen to old Game Scoops, like old ones?
I have re-listened to both old Game Scoops and the old Beyond. And when I say listen to, I go all the way back to the one, and then I just listen through them all to catch back up. And this is when I've worked through a podcast. I don't have anything else to listen to anymore, and I can't be fucked looking for anything new. But my favorite episode of Game Scoop is the one where it starts, and Craig Harris wasn't 100% paying attention.
Oh, is it happening?
And Greg Miller. And the first time I heard this... Yeah, is it happening now? And he loses his fucking mind, and I could not stop laughing. And I was in an IKEA parking thing, getting a set of shelves, picking up a set of shelves from my mum, and I thought it was the funniest fucking thing I'd ever heard.
Well, yeah, coming back to America, it was their E3 2007 podcast, Game Sausage, and
Mm,
I
that
listened to
was
that
good.
episode probably 2 or 3 times and almost cried in my
Yeah.
in my seat. See, unlike you, I do like to read, and I have some reading material, but that's all digital. So I have an iPad. I have a
Yeah.
few issues
You
of
mean you like to
Wired.
read digital?
Yeah, there's some things that I have a physical copy of, but so I have a few issues of Wired. The new issue of Mac Life magazine just came out today. The next issue
Cool.
of a music magazine that I that I read.
That would be fucking
That'd
magic.
be
You just
amazing.
plug the headphone on top of it, and it just plays it back. I mean, you could
Right.
read through it anyway, but
Well, that's
there's
why,
a
because it's a
jacking.
music magazine. That's why, because it usually gives me it increases the length of my music shopping list. It's called Shindig. It's out of the UK that I really like.
It seems like something that you'd have like a scanner or something. It's like, oh, this is the hot new track from Beat Pop, well, some sort of artist, and they put a QR code on it,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
you'd
some
like,
magazines
oh,
like
okay,
Rolling Stone have like a preview and then a buy from iTunes button right in there, which is good. Although I stream music more now, so that's not as applicable. Or buy it on vinyl. I bought a bunch of vinyl yesterday,
mm,
which I subsequently digitized and then put on my phone, so I have some new tunes to listen to. Because music is a big thing for me. I have some new stuff, and then I also have like I've had this moment for as long as I couldn't fit my music library onto my portable device. Also, I just noticed the way that the sun is working. It makes my hand look like I've got the power, which is
yeah,
amazing for all the audio listeners. I actually kind of want. I'll get a screen cap that later. Oh, now the video kind of went. But the show must go on. Oh my god, I'm trying to think. Oh, so I'd have this moment where like I would get up into the air, and then that moment a song would pop into my head that I didn't have on me,
mm,
and it would just bother me for the
yeah,
rest of the trip for like hours. I What's interesting though, we should unpack this a little bit. I for some reason like have never been able to watch movies and stuff on planes. Like for some reason like it doesn't hold my interest at
yeah,
all. And it's not that I don't like movies or TV shows. I mean, I'm not crazy about them, but like for some reason me being up in the air like it makes it really disconcerting for me to do that. Although JetBlue, which is the domestic airline here in the U.S.,
mm-hmm.
they have 36 channels of television, like live TV, and
Ah,
for
cool.
some reason, like I can get into that. So depending on when my flight is, so my flight is at 6:30. But sidebar, the last train to get to the airport from my place is at 1:30. So I'm gonna leave, or at 1. So I'm gonna leave my place at 1 a.m., get to the airport at 1:30 a.m., wait around for 5 hours, and then get on a 5.5 hour flight. Um,
Jesus.
so I get to pregame this one. Um, and I am
Uh,
going to. I have Giant Bomb. I subscribe to Giant Bomb officially. I gave them money for their content, and they have an exclusive video that goes up every Friday called Unprofessional Fridays, and it's 3.5 hours long of video of
Jesus.
them just playing games. Actually, Brent, if you're not a Giant Bomb fan, do you listen to the podcast, the
I don't
Bombcast?
think I do, but I hear good enough things because the whole first of all, had never really paid attention to video games until I found IGN, and then I, Polygon and Rev 3, but I never really got wandered over to Giant Bomb. But I keep hearing good things about their podcast, and I'm like, I really should listen to it because it sounds like a good time.
Go back and listen to their E3 podcast. They did a podcast every day of E3. I think it's 2.5 to 3 hours long, and their usual podcasts are about 2.5 hours long. And you'll laugh yourself silly. They rarely talk about video games,
Awesome.
and it's some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard. And it comes out on
Yeah.
Tuesdays, so I've already listened to my Bombcast for this week. But I do have another Geeky podcast that I can recommend to people, besides, of course, this one. Subscribe to this one always. It's called The Incomparable, and
Interesting.
every week they take a different geeky subject. It's kind of like our show in a way. This podcast's format, the usual format, is me just lifting parts from my favorite shows and doing that. They
Mm.
take a different, like a movie or a TV series or some part of like geek culture, and they talk about it for like a while. And it was just their 200th episode, and so they released a 3-hour podcast and then 45 minutes of bonus audio after they like stopped quote unquote like really recording after they like signed off. So it's just 45 minutes of them BSing. And so that's like 4.5 hours. So I think that's what's going to get me through the flight if I don't pass out. That would be ideal. Ideally, I would go get on the flight, turn on the podcast, and pass out. And then because I'm not going to sleep in the airport, and I'll have been up. There have been times where I've done this where I haven't been able to go to sleep, and I've been up for like 30 hours, and I am not a normal human at that point. I become human.
I did that in my trip from, I'm pretty sure, from Melbourne to when I landed in LA, because I went from LA to, because of the way my flights had been overlapped, in order for it to be the cheapest, the best deal for me, I had to wait around for like 4 hours until my next flight from LA to San Francisco transferred over. Oh no, sorry, it was from Melbourne to Melbourne to Sydney, because I went from here to Melbourne, Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to LA.
Jesus Christ.
No, yeah, and that's what it was. And it was the most annoying, well, not annoying, but I was just like, in that, just before I was properly leaving Australia, I looked out, I looked at the two of the flights that were leaving. One was going to LA and one was going to San Francisco, and I'm like, why the fuck couldn't I get the one that went to San Francisco? Because I planned this much further in advance.
Yeah, this time you should like, now that we've met people, you should ask for the scuttlebutt and be like, can you give me like a tentative weekend so I can just fly ahead or plan ahead?
Yeah, it was because I went from there to because of the length of that flight, I did not want to land in Calgary because I visited Canada before I came down to San Francisco again. But I landed in San Francisco, stayed there a night in one of the airport hotels. You know, the ones that's just outside right near it, which was great because I fucking caught up on some sleep. And then I went downstairs and they were they were watching. I can't even remember what sport they were watching, but I just started talking to these like 40-year-old businessmen who were watching. I think they might have actually been watching rugby, and I can remember it because they're like, they couldn't understand what the fuck was happening. Like, why aren't these guys wearing any armor or anything? They're just fucking hitting each other. They're just slamming into each other.
They clearly do not understand. I mean, I don't really understand rugby that well, but
rugby is brutal. Like, I mean, like
that much I know.
Yeah, I play rugby, and I played rugby in high school, and it was one of the things. It was almost everybody broke their collarbone at one point, except for me. I don't know how that happened, but it was just because it was someone. It was like it's fun. Like, you're taught when you're when you're tackling someone in rugby, you're supposed to. You can't just like slam into them like you do, like I've seen people do in NFL, where people just get sacked. Like, just you can't do that because they don't have any armor on. And when you tackle them, you're essentially your shoulders going into their kind of stomach core region, and you have to put your arms around the back of their like thighs, and you're placing them down, but harder. But the thing is, if you tackle them how you usually would, people would get ridiculous amounts of concussions and broken legs and bones. I mean, more so. I mean, I think AFL has a lot more broken legs and wrist and tendons and shit than rugby. Anyway, let's talk about. So for that trip, when I went to San Francisco, I got up in the morning, feeling like P. Diddy. And and I got on the plane, went to Calgary. Was there for a couple of days. It was just after the main part of the town had flooded, and after that, train had fucking derailed, which was unfortunate. Like, I'd literally been in the North America for 2 days, and shit had already started going wrong, which I took as a bad sign. I then went to Winnipeg, and Winnipeg was beautiful. I was in Winnipeg for Canada Day, and that was awesome. And then I came back down to San Francisco, was there for Independence Day, And I was there at the point where if any of our listeners are from San Francisco or the Bay Area, they'll remember a story around that time last year, when somebody had like been putting out poisoned meatballs or something
Yep.
in the fucking, yep. And I was like, what the fuck? I mean, cruel shit, like, not exactly like that happens here in Australia. But it was just so bizarre. And then it was talking about, like, oh, if you need to buy, like, this guy was on the ground somewhere not in San Francisco proper, I think it was south, yeah, like just past where technically San Francisco ends, where it was one of the only places you could actually legally buy fireworks, which was bizarre for me because they stopped that shit in like the 70s or 80s, because we used to have Guy Fawkes Day. No, we did, which was awesome because it was like
I always see pictures on that day of things that have happened in in certain places and in the past, of course.
Yeah, remember the 5th of November.
Always.
Yes. It was like my trip in San Francisco was a lot of fun, but I kind of retreated into myself a little bit because I walked out and I went and found out like this is where IGN is, so I knew how to get there because I didn't want to just leave on the day and not know where the fuck I was going. One day I went there and had lunch at 21st Amendment, and then on the way back.
That's where I will be in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, in Pacific Rim. And then I saw Pacific Rim like later that day.
You weren't in the Pacific Rim.
No.
You were on the Pacific coast of America.
Yes. Yeah, I was. What fun times. No kaiju, no giant crazy monsters.
Yeah, everyone will be back again next year. It's halfway between 300 and 400.
I've got an interview for a job on Tuesday, so as soon as, and I really hope I get it. So it'll be me working either part-time or casual at a place called Bunnings. It's our what's it called? What do you guys have there? It's like a home hardware kind of store.
Like Home Depot, a Lowe's.
Yeah, giant Lowe's. That's it. But it's like the giant ones that have here's your timber on this side, here's your home security shit. Like the ones where it's like almost 2-story shelves that I'm like, how the fuck can anybody get up there without killing themselves? And they have like the one giant box. I love it. But yeah, hopefully as soon as that happens, I'm going to start saving more than I already am for my trip.
It's going to be a good one.
So, squirreling away. Not squirrels because you don't have that shit.
Of course.
In
Plus,
Australia.
just win the Australian lottery. That's got to be like a couple $1,000.
Yeah. It was like last year. Don't you love how that... I don't know how it happens in America, but when it reaches a certain amount, because I'm not 100% sure how our lottery system works because I don't really do it. But when it's up to a certain amount, people obviously start to buy a lot more of the tickets. Like it got up to like 90 million like a year and a half ago or something. And it was one of those things where it got up to such a ridiculous amount that it was like being not televised, but they'd dedicate like a minute at the end of the thing, at the end of one of our news shows, just to like, it's jumped up again. It went from 90 million to 111 million. Which is fucking cartoonish. Nobody needs that.
Yeah, it's gotten up to like over $500 million here before.
Are you serious?
Yeah, which is insane. So I forget what the highest one was, but I think it was like maybe even like $700 million.
Wow.
And so obviously, like in those instances, I allow myself
I would give that back to the country. If I lived in America and I won that, I would give like most of that back to America.
Nah, it's not gonna happen. Well, they take half of it no matter what for taxes.
Oh wait. Oh Jesus, that's a really fucked up tax. As isn't that
no, there's like a specific like lottery related thing where like that makes so much money
as well because it counts as income. Like there's even a part on our tax form which I'll have to start filling out soon, or our tax. When you have to report your it's because it's that time of the year for Australia. Our financial year our financial year ends in about a day and a half. Because ours is, yeah, I know, right? and we have to get all that shit organized. But there's literally a section that's like, have you won the lottery, etc., etc., etc.
No, I gamble once a year with $100. And it's actually coming up to around that time where I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do that. But yeah, when it gets up to like $500 million, I'd spend $20 on a ticket because you know what?
Yeah.
If I won like $750 million, take a little vacation.
It'd be good. Jesus, it's just so ridiculous because when I was a kid, I thought that if somebody got all their numbers right, or majority of the numbers right, that they would I thought that if they got all the numbers right, that like all of that money was theirs. But does it work like in divisions where it's like the 500 million and then it's like a slightly smaller amount and a slightly smaller amount?
Well, that's crazy. There's a different lottery per state. And then there's like some sort of national stuff. It's weird, but I don't. Again, it's not usually it's not like my usual thing. But yeah, if I won $750 million, production value would go up on this show.
Yeah. Well, you'd probably afford it. You would pay. You would just like charter a flight. I would come out there. I would come to America, and then a couple months later, all of you guys would come here.
Yeah, I always, for some reason, I just imagine myself if I won $1 billion, or like $150 million or whatever. I just want to like rent out a cruise ship and just have a massive like week-long party with my friends somewhere really warm.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. Would the cruise ship have a pool?
Yeah, of course.
Would it have a pool within a pool?
I mean, if I could find one, yeah.
Like I'm imagining a pool where it has like a glass bottom or a perspex bottom, and then underneath that on a lower level is like a slightly smaller pool or jacuzzi.
Whatever. It would be a whole thing. I'd rent the whole entire liner. Whatever. But that's the only like self-indulgent thing that I do. I'd like have a big party with my friends and then be like, all right, we really do need to donate a whole bunch of this like stat.
Yeah, you'd sit down and say, look. Just put look.
Yeah, you got to piss away some of the money, but not all of it.
Oh, of course. No. I'm going to be slightly responsible. I'd put away some of it immediately, and then I would just piss away some of it, and then I would send the rest of it to like some sort of charity. I would try as hard as I could to cure cancer, and when I say try, I'd give it to people so that they could use their intelligence to do it.
Yeah, Summer Games Done Quick is still going on when this should post in a couple of hours after recording it. Recording on Saturday today. And SGDQ, Summer Games Done Quick, the speedrunning marathon that happens twice a year. It's Awesome Games Done Quick in January, Summer Games Done Quick in June, July. Cool. They raised over $500,000 so far for Doctors Without Borders, which is really cool. I donated during the Super Mario World. The Super Mario World run. I was like,
wasn't that like? Didn't you do it in like 40 minutes?
Here's some of my money.
Isn't that?
Yeah. And then there was a race.
Yeah. God, I love it. Super Mario World is a great game. It's one of the ones that I can just keep going back to. Like I love most of the Mario games, but that one, just because of the way it's all set out, I just fucking love it. I'm playing Shovel Knight at the moment. That is a good game. I've got to ask, because it's just something I discovered and I liked it. How do you feel about Cracked, like Cracked.com? Because I know some people really don't like it. And I understand why some people don't like it. It's because
it's good, and we will end on this point. But I like it.
We've got stuff to do. People listen to the Cracked podcast if you haven't. I think it's really good. They are informative, and they have neat hip hop music throughout. And at the end, they tell you this is by this person, this is by that person. They inform you these are good. These are the musicians maybe you should be listening to, maybe. Which is really good. I like it.
Yeah, Cracked is great. Some very fine lists. So this has been episode number 37 of the Minor League Geeks podcast. Brent, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at Brent C. Turner. Follow me there. I tweet things sometimes. If more people follow me and they start interacting with me, I will make more of an effort to be more interesting.
You'll become a more interesting person.
I will just start posting a lot more Australian stuff. How about that?
There you go.
I will find more Australian things. I will not attack. How about this? I'll get a Vegemite and cheese scroll because those are fucking delicious. And I will go out and I'll just hang with a koala and a kangaroo. I'll form a crime fighting team.
There you go. Crime fighting team. You can help fund, kind of fund that in a way. You could make that happen. It's like a Kickstarter without any money, which is kind of like the show. I've been your host, Brand Ramblin' with Ranj. You can find me on Twitter at branj. You can find me writing. You can find my writing, pirate and otherwise, at brantranj.com, readrusher.com. I wrote something for nkrn.org. And I had a job interview on Wednesday, and we'll see if I get that job, and I can talk about that more. It's in the games industry and would be a really cool opportunity, so I hope I get it. I'll be hearing back soon. Thank you for sticking with us. You can find this podcast, of course, Minor League Geeks, on any podcast downloading service or podcatcher, if you prefer. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at MLGeeks. You can write in comments, questions, or concerns to minorleaguegeeks at gmail.com. Almost did a Knocking Boots podcast plug, although send your sex questions there. Thank you again for listening. We will talk to you again next week. Until then, stay classy.